Speaking of Romney and speaking of the whole Ted Nugent scandal, we talked last week about Ted Nugent's comments implying that if President Obama is reelected, he'll either be dead or in jail and all sorts of that stuff. And we've picked a little bit at the hypocrisy between when the Dixie Chicks made a comment about George W. Bush. They were shunned, record sales down, called un-American. Ted Nugent, on the other hand, becomes a Fox News analyst after making such comments. Well, now Hugh Hefner is coming out and saying very, very clearly, he's actually making some great points about what's wrong with just about every Republican candidate that was involved in this race, saying that we have a series of repressed conservatives waging a war against sex. So there's a number of wars being alleged here, Lewis. The war against women and the war against sex.
Yeah, I guess so. Aren't they connected?
Okay. In an editorial that was published in the May edition of Playboy Magazine, Hefner makes some specific charges, Lewis. He says that we have conservatives pounding on America's bedroom door. Rick Santorum promised to defund birth control. Ron Paul believed that the pill did not cause immorality, but immorality created the problem of wanting to use the pill. That's pretty bad, too. Of course, Mitt Romney vowed this constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage. And I have to say that Hugh Hefner makes some great points here. Now, here's the thing. He is now going to be criticized, Obama is, that is, because Hugh Hefner is coming out so strongly against Republicans. And they're going to say, hey, wait a second. Look at all these Democrats saying Nugent, Romney didn't reject the endorsement. And they'll say, look at Hugh Hefner. What exactly has Hugh Hefner done that is comparable to what Ted Nugent said? We're going to see this comparison from the moral majority, so to speak, saying Hugh Hefner saying he wants Obama to win over the Republicans, even though it's not exactly what he said here. He's just said, I wouldn't vote for any of these Republicans. A non-comparison.
If this happens, it's the same comparison as strapping a dog to the roof of your car and eating some dog meat when you're 6, 7 years old in a foreign country.
It's the same type of distraction. And a lot of people are emailing me saying, I should be thrilled. They say, David, you should be thrilled that these are the criticisms being levied against Obama, because it means that the Republican Party is so desperate to throw anything they can and see what sticks that they have to resort to saying things like, well, Hugh Hefner made, by the way, a pretty good analysis of Republican positions on women and on sex. And that's just as bad as having Ted Nugent associated with you. And they have to come out and, like Lewis said, say that, hey, Seamus Romney strapped to the roof of a car by adult Mitt Romney, no different than Barack Obama having a bite of dog meat where it's native as a food in Indonesia when he was 7 years old.
Right.
And not liking it, by the way, writing in his book that it was very, very tough and he didn't like that dog meat.
Doesn't sound good to me.
No, it doesn't sound good to me either.
Dogs are always running around, very muscular. The meat has got to be tough.
Wow.
Right?
I have no idea. Do you think it's gamey?
Probably.
Still haven't even figured out what that means. We'll talk more, by the way, about meat later with Lee Fong. That's a whole other fiasco going on.
Right.